Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Coffee Workshop. Ben Jones here with Badorf and Bronson Coffee Roasters. We're going to take another look at Monday's coffee experiment. I played around with some different paper cup brew options. If you remember, on Monday, I ended up spilling coffee over my countertop, which is fine. It's a workshop, and counters are reasonably impermeable to water, so just a little bit of a mess. Anyway, the basic idea is what we're going for is, if you don't have access to your coffee equipment, but you do have some paper cups, could you make a cup of coffee all on your own? What I learned is that definitely a pair of stabilizing skewers or chopsticks are very helpful, but you can see the bottom on there. I tried a lot of different versions of poking holes in the bottoms, and I learned that poking holes in the bottom of a paper cup is a fairly awful filter. We just don't get enough flow rate going through there, and without the addition of a secondary filter, too many grounds will flow through. So here's this one. I'm going to need these skewers. I'm just going to pull these out. This has been sitting for quite some time today, and if I take those skewers out, it starts to flow through the skewer holes. That's kind of cool. But that's not the target. That's not the goal. On this one, I tried something different. Again, you can see it's very full. What I did with this one is I took a cup, I cut the bottom out, and then I put one of our smaller cups into it so it was nested upside down. My thought there was, if I poke a bunch of holes in here, we can use the gaps on the side to be our steeping chamber, and then as the water rises, it'll pool over the top of this and the coffee will drop down through. And as you can see, that's been sitting there for an hour already, and I don't have enough coffee to shake a skewer stick at. Not a good design. Wasn't one of my better ideas. And just so you can see what it looks like, and so there you can see that the holes, they just get clogged right away, even using coarse coffee. Yeah, so we try again, right? Didn't want to just write this off as a failure right away. Didn't want to say it was impossible, because what if you're in a position where you don't happen to have all your coffee gear? What do you mean you don't travel with a vacuum pot in your pocket? If you did that, you have to travel with some backup butane. Could be logistically challenging. So, tried some new things. The first thing I want to do, I'm just taking a paper cup. Nothing special about this paper cup except that it is completely intact, 100%, only one hole, and that's the one on the top. I went ahead and weighed out 19 grams of coffee. This is very coarsely ground. And toss that in there. I have some hot water. It's hovering right around 200 degrees. And I'm just going to get that nice and wet. Now this coffee is a very special coffee. It will come out on Monday. This is that Gesha variety from Colombia. If you saw our video Wednesday, Roaster Bob and our retail trainer Ryan, they were having a little chit chat about the Columbia Gesha along with Josh. Cool. So we're gonna let this sit and steep, and that's gonna be our first step at brewing. Now, the other thing we're gonna do, we're gonna use some of our Columbia Las Brisas, because that's the one that I really like. And I'm going to go ahead and just put my skewers through here. I doubled up because I learned my lesson last time. We go skewer, skewer. This was the closest thing I could find to kind of break some of the rules of doing essentially coffee cup and non-coffee equipment. But I now have something that will stabilize my cup, so I'm not going to spill over myself. I want to use this to brew up some of our Colombia Las Brisas. Take a little handy-dandy utility knife, and I'm just going to cut the bottom of our cup right out of there. There we go. It's not pretty, but it's a much bigger hole. This way, the grounds won't clog it up, but they'll pass right through. So this was my compromise. I was like, you know what? I still really want to do this, so I went ahead and just took out a regular flat bottom paper filter. I'm going to cut a couple slots in there. This is going to make room for our skewers. There we are. Bet you didn't know this is going to be all arts and crafts today. Get our tape. And I'm just going to tape this now to my cup. As I was doing this, I was thinking, you know what's crazy is that Bob Ross would paint a whole picture in one of his little 30-minute episodes. Definitely not the Bob Ross of coffee. That'd be kind of cool. But I was just impressed that he could make something really nice in a little 30-minute episode. Whereas what I'm going to be kicking out here, it's not going to be pretty to look at. We're going to look for pretty to taste. So, again, this is not what I recommend specifically as a coffee brewing tool. This is just to show sort of proof of concept, the principles of brewing work, that if we can get some way to steep grounds in water and then some way to filter them, we can make a cup of coffee. And that's all of that's what our brews are. So essentially we made a pour over out of a paper cup and a filter. So I have my coffee, I'm just going to add that in. In our water, we're just going to add some water. Here's our bloom. Totally not using a scale. If you didn't, I don't know if you noticed. I'm kind of winging some things today. So this works. This is a thing. We're getting liquid coffee flowing through a filter, steeping briefly in some grounds. It works. To go back to that idea of trying to brew without using actual coffee tools, I did use a coffee filter, so I cheated. You could also take a well-laundered and clean old t-shirt, cut a square out of it, and use this in place of your coffee filter. I'm sure you can get creative on different ways to secure it. Tape, I'm sure, would work well enough, at least once. Tuck that in there. We go. All right. So here we're getting some coffee in there. I should have put some ice in the bottom of this cup and have some instant iced coffee, some flash brewed. All right. I'm just going to keep adding some water here. A finer grind would have been pretty beneficial, but this is my compromise kind of last minute. I was like, I'm just going to do this. All right. Another thing we could do, if you wanted to try to get away from using coffee elements to brew, just take a good old funnel. This is, I picked it up in the automotive department at the local store. I haven't used it for motor oil or transmission fluid yet, because that would make a horrible cup of coffee, and I can't recommend that. In fact, I'm going to recommend against doing that. But if it's clean, the theory holds that we could take that, put that into something, and then you could just take your cloth and put it right over that. So that right there would be an adequate another filter for your coffee. But today I was fixated on this paper cup challenge, the paper cup problem. Let's give this a little bit more. All right. So this is rolling through. You get the idea. It's going to make a cup of coffee. I'm going to go and just set it aside, and I want to revisit our Columbia Gesha, the Via Esperanza, which, if you go to our website on Monday, batdorfcoffee.com, Monday is the day that one hits. The way we release coffees is, we have to get it, and Bob and our roasting crew, they do all their experimentation with it ahead of time, just to dial in the specific roast profile. Then once they like what they have, then we take it to market. All right, so I have some of that Columbia in here, and it's just been steeping. I'm gonna take a little stir stick and just gonna break that crust. If you've watched any of our cupping videos, breaking that crust is going to allow the grounds to fall to the bottom. And even if you haven't been watching our videos, they're still gonna fall to the bottom. Sorry, it's a bad dad joke. All right, and here, I can use that stir stick to kind of hold back some of the junk. And we can just gently pour off our coffee there. And in a pinch, this would work. If I was in a hotel and I couldn't, this is the only way I had to do it. I'm not a big fan of the provided coffees often, and maybe I checked my baggage and it had my coffee equipment in it. So there we go. So we're left over with our grounds in the cup, and we've got some coffee. It's gonna be a little chewy. We're gonna get some chunks in there, but it's a really good cup of coffee. This is the same idea as a French press, where you have your grounds steeping in a bunch of water in a container. The French press has that incorporated filter, so instead of trying to use a straight edge and hold back the grounds, the pad will do that for you. So I have no complaints about this one. Pretty solid. And that's that Columbia Gesha Via Esperanza, be available on Monday. Now let's go over to this little messy art and craft thing. We got some brew. Yeah, that'll work too. And that's a cup of coffee. Both of these, we can tweak that flavor profile by changing our coffee water ratios. We can change our grind size to affect how quickly it brews. Those are the different elements for manipulating our brew. Even though those turned out okay, if I had to recommend one of these, it would just be the steep in a cup and pour out. But I really don't want to be relying on that, so you know what I'm gonna do? Yeah, I know y'all, what everybody in the office is thinking. Let's just get an AeroPress. Incredibly handy. If you don't have an AeroPress, this little plastic cone, it's a few bucks. It's roughly the same price as a motor oil filter or a funnel. We sell these are great. It's plastic. They're both plastic actually, which means they're great for travel. Anyway, so we learned some stuff. Poking holes in the bottom of your cup doesn't really work well for a filter. If you can make that work, I would love to see it. Send us a link in the comments. Maybe post up a little YouTube. Hot water, ground coffee, and time. We have some great coffees out of Colombia. We have some great coffees from all over the coffee growing world. Check out our website, baddwarfcoffee.com. We're still doing shipping complimentary, orders $30 or up. If you buy a brewer, 25% discount automatically on a bag of dancing goats, which is delicious. And if you don't need a brewer, just some coffee, or if you do need a brewer, use a discount code WATCHANDLEARN10. That's the number 10. Watch and learn, all one word. Put that in the checkout box. All right. I'm glad I didn't spill anything all over today. I learned from the past, made some adjustments, working towards a better future, find out what works really well, and we're going to continue to do the things that make our world a better place. Good cup of coffee. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Just going to check through the comments real quick, see if I missed anybody. Hi, Ren. How are you doing? Sweet. Don't have any questions that need answered, but if you ever do, feel free to pop those in the comments. We'll be watching those for a while after the video. And have a good weekend. Go do some good in the world. See you back here in the coffee workshop live on Monday.